Hi, everybody. Woody Alpern here from Dive Talk. I'm in Gus's beautiful studio. What I'm doing today is reacting to what you probably will end up considering a pretty disturbing video and dive situation. So you may have heard of it. It's the David Shaw video. The last dive of David Shaw was in 2005. You can Google it. He was recovering the body of Dean Dreyer. It was a body recovery. It's in Bushman's Hole. It's a cave in South Africa, 890 feet in depth, and almost, I think the elevation was 5,090 feet. So we have a lot to contend with here. Deep, high altitude, and it's a body recovery. Now, a couple of other points that are very important. Doesn't matter what kind of rebreather he was using. Happened to be a Jurgensen Marine Hammerhead rebreather. It was a Hammerhead CCR with the Hammerhead electronics. Listen to the gas mixtures he had to set up, and then I'm going to get into the review. Trimix, of course, he had a 480. That means 4% oxygen, because at that depth, the partial pressure at 4% would be the highest partial pressure he could possibly have been able to tolerate. 480 means 80% helium. So the 4 is oxygen, 80% is helium. He also had a 1070 mix, a 1555, a 1740, a 2625, and air, nitrox 50, and 100% oxygen. There's a lot to contend with. One more thing. He actually did a dive in this cave the day before the body recovery to set a world's record, the deepest CCR dive. But then when he was on that dive, he found the body at the bottom. And when he came back up, he said, I found this body. And he was encouraged to go back and recover the body that had been down there for a very long time. So bloated body that he has to bring up from that depth. And here's the big one. He did all of this by himself. Let's start the video and react.
As he submerges, the clock starts ticking. Don Shirley describes what happens underwater.
So you notice he's going down.
Dave's going to move over to the entrance of the cave.
All right, so this part is just going down. It's right at the beginning. It's got his light.
And see how clear the water is already.
I want to take you to the first point that I want to comment
The
on.
sounds you're hearing there are the divers below that's doing the filming.
So there were some divers in the water, but not all the way down to the very bottom where he's doing the rescue. Recovery.
Dave's getting ready to go down now.
All right, get through this part here because I want to stop it when he hits about the 20-foot mark.
Yeah, the descent has begun. Now moving through the restriction,
So
just
I'm
checking that everything's okay with the computer.
Good job on checking his computer. He's doing that regularly. You should do that about every 2 or 3 minutes.
See part of the cave there as we're moving through.
It is a cave, so he's going to enter a no-light zone.
This is the oxygen hanging at 6 meters.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. So he's at, let's call it 20 feet, 6 meters. He has 100% oxygen at that level. That's very important because if something were to go wrong with his rebreather and he had to bail out, he needs to be able to do a very long decompression. This dive was 9 hours and 40 minutes. So he's going to have a lot of deco time. Now, you got to have that oxygen in order to do your deco. Otherwise, you would be in there forever. I mean, you can't do that on regular air. Here's the thing. He did this dive the day before with no tasks, and it was successful. I have said this many times before. If you have one single problem at this depth, you may be able to deal with it if you have one problem and you're by yourself. If you have more than one problem and you're going down to this depth, can you deal with it? Because one additional problem compounds in complexity at that depth off the chart. The other thing is, remember, he's going very, very deep. What is the work of breathing like? What is happening to the gas density at this depth? We're talking about almost 900 feet underwater. Let's watch him continue to go down. So far, so good. No real tasks yet, and it's the second day in a row, so he's feeling pretty good. I don't like feeling pretty good on a dive, being willing to do something this complex by myself. Can you imagine trying to do something like this without a team? Forget having one buddy. There's so many tasks that have to be completed. You better have a team. Here we go.
It's getting past all the clutter that's there. There's our cameraman.
So
everything's going good.
So he's still around other people at this point. It's not very deep.
Final check.
Final check.
Everything's good.
And he's headed down. And he goes down quickly.
Now. Soon be coming to the roof.
That means the cave zone. He's going into the cave, so he's going to lose all light, except for his lights, of course. And
he's passing 22 meters.
Let's stop.
Everything.
Let's stop there at 22 meters. You saw 2 tanks hanging at 22 meters. Let's call that 22 meters roughly 70 feet. At that 70-foot spot, he has nitrox 50. Why nitrox 50 at 70 feet? Just so you know what's going on there. Well, if he had to bail out, he can switch to that 50% oxygen and take that all the way from 70 feet up to 20 feet, where he'll switch to 100% O2. 20 feet on 100% O2, he'll have a partial pressure of 1.6. That's okay. 70 feet on the 50% nitrox, his partial pressure would be 1.6. So that's okay. He can switch to those mixes and use them to finish his ascent, which is basically a very, very long deco from 70 feet up to 20 feet, and then ultimately from 20 feet up to the surface. That's why they have those particular mixes right there. So far, everything seems to be going okay.
Going good.
I'm going to let it run a bit because now he's going to get into the deep depths. He's really dropping.
On the roof. You see a bit of rock coming down from the roof there. Now we're in the clear. Now we're descending on the line.
Now notice he has a rope, a big line.
Quickly, everything's going good.
All the way down. And I don't know what depth that rope goes to. But rope
Final
like
check.
that would be
PPO2s are good.
pretty difficult to get
Moving
tangled
down
up
the
in.
line. My oxygen levels are right.
A big thick
My
rope,
computers are good.
less chance of it getting wrapped all up, twisted all
Passing
around.
some of the stage cylinders. Lots of cylinders on this line.
Lots of cylinders.
Waves moving down very quickly now.
All those mixes I were telling you about are going to come into play if he has to bail out, because basically that will keep his partial pressure. They probably had it planned to no greater than 1.6 at any part during the ascent if he had to bail out and get onto those bailout gases. Those would be at depths to where those mixes would never allow him to exceed a 1.6 partial pressure all the way up to the surface. And it's rope all the way down to the bottom.
He's helping himself go down, running the line very quickly down.
Dropping quickly.
Good.
Not really doing much work yet. Check it.
There we are on the bottom now, moving along.
Now he's on the bottom. So check this
There's
out.
the big thick line from the down line.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, now we're coming to the small line which goes off to the body.
This is very standard in cave diving. You have line. It's not very thick. And he has that line running from what looks like the end of the rope to the body. I guess he tied that off the day before. So he knows right where to go to get to the body. But look at that bottom. How quickly can that bottom silt out at 900 feet, especially dealing with another body and having to move around and twist? And he wants to get the body, by the way, in a body bag. He doesn't want to bring up a bloated body back up to the surface. The family would see it. So he was also trying to deal with a body bag. Can you imagine a body bag filling up with water, moving all around on top of everything else? By himself.
Okay, Dave's working hard now. He's trying to save as much time as he can.
Now, they're already commenting that he's working hard. He hasn't even started the work yet. He's just simply got to the bottom, and they're already noticing he's working hard. The work of breathing is difficult, or more difficult than what you would be used to, because the gas is super dense. Even with a 480 mix, it's denser. He's on-gassing very, very quickly. He does not have a lot of time. At this depth, I didn't run the profile on iDeco Pro, but at 900 feet underwater, you're racking up deco extremely quick. I would say for every minute that you're underwater, if it was at 100 meters, every minute at 100 meters would require 5 minutes of deco at 100 meters. Okay? He went to 270 meters. So, wow. He could be racking up 15 minutes of deco per minute.
And there we have Werner's dolphin. There's a dolphin that was put in the roof as a joke to Werner. Now it's deflated and gone all the way back down to the bottom.
He's on the bottom. He's at 9. We'll call it 900.
Everything's good. 10 minutes into the dive. Very quick descent. Everything's great.
No problems.
Now, Dave's working hard. He's jogging. It's like jogging on the surface.
That part is already bothering me. See, he's working hard. Do you think he would be working this hard if he had a team down there with him? There are so many tasks. I would tell you, let's think about the kind of team that would have made sense for this dive. Well, I would say you need a team at various points along the ascent line. Absolutely, at all of those points where those different mixtures are, I would have a team member ready to help him get to the next level. I would definitely have a team with me. So that's already another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 5 or 6 people all up along the line. Then you've got to have a team, at least I would say 2 other additional people at the bottom to help you with possible entanglement, help you with putting the body in. And if somebody has a problem, I want to have double redundancy, because if 2 people have a problem, I still want to have a third guy to make sure he can help the other 2 that have a problem, with all the normal problems that can go on with diving, on top of the complexities that can happen at 900 feet. We could have hypoxia, where we have too low of oxygen. We could have hypercapnia, where you're working so hard, you start to get a CO2 hit and you breathe through your scrubber. By the way, can you imagine the weight and how much scrubber he had to have to do a 9-hour and 40-minute dive? If you have either one of those things happen, hypercapnia is going to cause complete confusion. You have very little time to react. Hypoxia, you don't even feel it coming. You just black out. Either one of those problems alone, by yourself at that depth, I mean, death.
So he's actually breathing quite heavily at 270 meters. See how clear everything is. Nice bright light shining, can see everything happening.
So right now he can see.
Right, getting ready.
That's a very important point they've just made.
Okay. Dave will be able to see Dion now. There's Dion's legs. Right,
so he's at the body.
Everything is going good. We're working hard.
So far, so good.
Undo the bag and put it over the legs.
He has to undo a bag, is what he just said, and get the legs inside of the bag. I want you to imagine trying to do this with a bloated body, which typically are floaty. Those bodies float. I forget the name of the reaction that's happening in the body. I was just reading about it the other day. That causes bodies to float after a certain amount of time. We can look that up later. But boy, if he's unwedging that body or getting that body out of the gear that's keeping the body down, the weight, the tanks, and so forth, that's going to go floaty on him very quickly. So now he's got to deal with a body that's floating. He's at 900 feet underwater all by himself. There's line. He's no longer on rope. that can easily be moved around. And this is a cave. That bottom that they said is very clear can silt out like that. One problem, just a silt out would already be too much in my opinion when you're by yourself. How about a silt out, a line entanglement, and dealing with a body that's going to go floaty on you all at the same time with nobody else there to help you? If there would have been other team members to help, could all of what happened had been avoided?
Everything's good. Checking, everything's right. Breathing heavily, still jogging. Okay, bit of silt, I'd expect that.
A bit of silt.
Okay, undoing the bag and trying to slide it up the legs.
But a bit of silt turns into a lot of silt really fast in a cave.
The body is loose. It's not in the... it's no longer stuck in the mud. Everything is loose. The body's moving around with its cylinders. Dave's working hard, trying to work out what to do next. He's still checking all the gauges. He's breathing heavy, he's working hard.
So there's a lot going on. He is task loaded. I like when they said he's checking his gauges, but he's trying to figure out what to do. How do I get the gear off? How do I get him in this bag? How's my line doing? How's my time doing? How's my worker breathing going? And again, if you all of a sudden start getting hypercapnia from overworking because that worker breathing down there is tough, confusion sets in so quickly. Would he even know to bail out at that point? Or is he just singularly focused? Because, man, you could also be probably a little narked. I don't know what 480 mix equivalent nitrogen depth, the END, is at 900 feet. Have a look at it on your own. But I bet you it's equivalent to a pretty deep dive on regular air. So he's probably slightly narked on top of it, which means you're just not thinking as clearly. You're not able to react as quickly. You're not able to solve problems, especially multiple problems, easily. Man, imagine if you had two other people there and one of them was doing nothing but making sure the other two that are working are okay.
Now, this line is just getting everywhere because this body is floating. It's not stuck. Everything's moving.
So here we go. Compounding problems
light
now
gets
starting.
caught on the line there.
Light.
Moving out the way.
Line.
Still a nice bright light.
Line entanglement.
Moving up. Now, we can't put the bag over, so it's a case of just untangling the cylinders from the line here.
Now the cylinders are tangled in the line.
Rushing, trying to get these scissors to cut.
You can't get the body in the bag. You can't get the tanks in the bag.
We were going to cut it out of the cylinders, but now everything is loose. This is a very sloping bottom, so Dave slipped here.
Oh, the bottom is sloping, so he said Dave slipped there. What do you think happened when he slipped on the bottom? More silt. As he's trying to cut, and more stuff's becoming entangled. Because what happens is panic starts to set in, and you start moving erratically and moving around. I've had to cut people out before. They can't cut themselves out. The only thing they can do is stop and wait for somebody else to do it, because you can't see where that line's floating all around. There's silt. You can't even see the task you're doing anymore. So let's watch what happens, because these compounding problems spin out of control like that. It goes from, you heard 1 minute ago, the video said, everything's okay. He's at the bottom looking at the video, to 1 minute later, completely out of control. No chance of, unfortunately, making it to the surface. All happened in 30 seconds to a minute. It went completely out of control with nobody there to help him.
Again, now he's coming back to the body. And you can see he's checking, making sure everything's right with his time. Time's getting short now. The time is nearly to the point where he needs to leave.
So now he's saying he's checking and time is getting short. But here's what happens. Is his judgment clouded? He's trying to set this record of a body recovery. So maybe he's saying, you know what, time is short, but I'm going to push it. So even if he was able to get the body in, even if he was able to get himself uncut, Was he already doomed by being willing to push what that planned dive was? Did he follow his plan? He had a very specific plan, which at 900 feet, you have like no room for error. Plan your dive, dive your plan. Was that protocol followed?
Okay, good check. All the time checking, making sure he's okay, working at the same time. There's the line.
He's checking. He's checking his computers, but
This
he's
is a line we were worried about being loose.
busy
And there it is loose.
trying to untangle himself, and it's silting. So
Okay.
now,
We've now come to the end of our time now, and it's time to leave.
okay, so it's
Dave
time to
decided
leave.
He's going to leave.
It's time to leave. It's
All
at
on
the end of the
plan,
clock.
Everything's right. He's still working hard. Everything's right.
He's end of the plan. Time to leave, but the narrator said he's still working hard. He's still continuing to work hard, but he's at the end. He can't continue to work hard, and he's still working hard.
He's leaving. Okay, all on time. Working hard.
Now here's the problem.
Quick
He's
check.
leaving,
Make sure his gauges are right.
and he's
Something
leaving
seems
pretty
to-
much when he planned to,
He's
but
stopping him now.
there's
He's caught in the line.
he's caught in the line. So he took his plan right to the absolute point where he had to leave. There's no room for error anymore. There's no margin of error left. He went to the very last point of when he had to exit. If everything goes perfectly by himself, he could have been okay. But line entanglement, body floating, that fast, it's over.
Okay. He's working hard trying to untangle himself. You can see the bag. Okay, there he goes. He's moving on again.
I'm going to let it play.
Now, he's breathing very hard.
So
Getting quite difficult to do things.
it's hard to watch. He's breathing hard,
Good check on the gauge.
difficult to do things.
Now,
He's already beyond his time,
Dave's
plant time.
breathing would be getting quite heavy as he's trying to work his way out.
Breathing
And slowly, Dave would start to become incoherent, and then he would stop.
Did you see how quickly it went from Dave was working, then he was working harder, then it was getting difficult to breathe, to then the narrator said, now Dave's becoming incoherent. I'm not kidding you. I think that was 15 seconds between the time where he said he's still working, checking his computer, to becoming incoherent. When we say stuff happens fast at depth, 900 feet is approximately 30 atmospheres, 31 atmospheres. That means you are using up your air 31 times faster. Everything is happening 31 times faster than it would on the surface. Plus, he's at altitude. It's cold. There's no light. There's a line entanglement. You have a body floating. It didn't go as planned. You went beyond the time that you planned. And then he becomes incoherent. So the question we have now is, why did he become incoherent? What happened? He was still breathing. What happened to go from, I'm on my rebreather, it's functioning, I'm looking at my dive computer, to incoherent means basically I'm passed out. Well, for those of you who have taken a rebreather class or a mixed gas class, it could be only a few things, right? One of them is, what would make you go incoherent, black out? Hypoxia. What is hypoxia? Too low of oxygen. Or in this case, your partial pressure drops to a level where you can no longer maintain consciousness. I would say, dropping below what? Anything below 0.15 is a very high risk of becoming hypoxic. That fast he could become hypoxic, which apparently he did. That's it. He's by himself. If you become hypoxic at 900 feet underwater and black out, that's it. There's nobody around to help you. There's nobody around to look at your partial pressure. Push a button that just gives you more oxygen.
but he was still moving out, and he was still working right up to the end.
And now?
And what he found was he got caught up in the line.
Got caught up in the line. And that was it.
He was moving away, the body and everything was actually towing behind him. And he had to then try and untangle himself from that in a very restricted light position with a very high sort of breathing rate.
Sad. He really meant well. He was trying to do a good thing, but...
And he basically succumbed to all the pressures that you've got at that sort of time. And his breathing slowly faded, and Dave passed away.
Yeah, it really is sad. I mean, here's a person that really was trying to do a good thing. I only have a couple minutes left, but I kind of want to summarize it. You see, it really, you know when the problem started? This is my reaction. When did the problem start for Dave? You know when it started? When he successfully completed the first dive. That was when he was doomed, because that's called luck. He got lucky and did a single world record CCR dive by himself. That creates false confidence because he didn't have any problems on that dive. Everything went exactly as planned. He also didn't have any real tasks other than to go down and come back up. That was it. I wouldn't say he was complacent necessarily, but he had a sense of confidence that he could now accomplish this mission by himself, perhaps because of the day before where he did a record-breaking dive. The second problem that Dave had is something called, I don't want to say this, I don't think it's fair to say this, but he really wanted to accomplish and get another record. So he was willing to push himself, get that second mark, get that second trophy, and I'm going to go beyond what I think anybody reasonable would even consider ever doing by themselves. Tremendous team effort to do a dive of this complexity. It's already hard enough to do mixed gas diving with absolutely no task in warm water with perfect visibility. 900 feet in a cave, lack of visibility, floating body, multiple different issues can happen, and unfortunately it did. Don't do this. There's no reason to push yourself ever to do this to this level. We need each other. I believe we need each other all the time in all diving. I've said that many times on Dive Talk. I'm not a proponent of solo diving, independent diving, whatever you want to call it. It's all good until it's not. So that's my reaction to the video. Let's take care of each other on every single dive we do. Thanks for watching.